If you haven't already figured it out, actions can be pretty cool in terms of what they do for you. Think of them as recipes. Recipes for your image, creative and production possibilities, everything that you need to do to it. Very similar to if you were to prepare meals in the kitchen. Some recipes for doing so would be very simple. A recipe to boil water is not too involved, whereas a recipe to create dinner for 12 is definitely more involved. So I'm going to show you a little bit towards the actions, how you create them, how you make use of them. One of the first things you'll notice in terms of how I have my stuff set up here, these palettes, where they are, where they're placed. This is how I like to make use of things through here. If you look on your window in Photoshop, you'll come down, you can see what's checked in terms of what you're going to see. If actions isn't already checked, you could just certainly make sure that it's available that way. We can take these palettes and place them around. I've got my history and my layers combined here. This allows me to see what's happening with the action. I can click over to history to see what's going on there. Of course, there's different ways you can have these for flyout in terms of how they're structured, whether you're working with CS2, 3, 4, 5, that kind of thing. But for the moment, let's just have these available as you see here. And then to keep that to yourself, you're going to have your workspace that you're going to create a workspace. Call it what you will, whether it's your own personal one or related to your monitor size. Save it, and then you would have these choices available to you here that you can then go through next time. Workspace, and you can select the workspace that you want to work with that you programmed in earlier. So we've got that set up. Now let's look at the action palette itself. We'll come up through here, bring things a little more central. There we go. Your items at the bottom, you've got your trash, as it is similar for all elements. We've got our new folder here, which in this case will create a new set. Actions are saved into a set, and the beauty bar up here is a set. So we could just say test, and that's going to create a new folder at our bottom of our actions palette. The icon to the right of that is the new action. So this will say, okay, what are you going to do? Where are you going to save it? Do you want to attach any function keys to it? So you name it and you start recording. It could be simply as simple as test rotate. We click record, we come down here, and we can go image rotation, 90 degrees counterclockwise. It's done. We press stop. So this was our record button, this is our play button, and this one's our stop button. So in the case of our image, we can look in our history. We'll just go to where we started. Here's my action for my rotate. I press play, it runs, and now it's done. So that's a very simple action. Gives you an idea as to how you may want to do things in terms of programming your own. Let's go back in time. If we want to double click on that, we can now come up and change those settings. So in this case, it brought up the settings that were in there before. Let's click that to counterclockwise. Press OK. So now it's gone and rotated it the other way. We'll take our history, go back to where we started, try this, and now we can see that we've reprogrammed that action. So just because the action sets come with their pre-programmed steps doesn't mean that you're locked in. You can always make changes to them as you choose to. What you may find, if we were to take this action here and our new action icon down here, take that action, drop it onto the icon, we'll see that we actually have a copy here. So now before I go and change that, this is now obviously set to be my rotate counterclockwise. Let's now double click on that and rotate that clockwise. So bringing that back, here's our first action that we did, rotated the image counterclockwise. Here's our second one, which rotates it clockwise. If I double click on that action, we'll just come over here and we'll call that clockwise. Double click on this one, and we'll call that counterclockwise. So not only did we take our action, copy it, we copied it, changed the value, then went in and changed the name. So we have this set up so that if I want to see that I want to make that counterclockwise, no problem, or clockwise. Very simple process, and when you've got your history palette set up across from your actions, it allows you to very quickly switch back and forth between what you're making use of within your selections. If I wanted to save this, I'm going to click down here on the top right of my action palette, and you'll see that I can save my actions. You can't save individual actions, but you can save the action set, the folder in which the actions are kept. So you could have that wherever you have it within your storage or to a separate CD area. Burning a CD is your hard copy, so if you get a new computer or you have a system failure, you can reload these very simply. Similarly to load actions, simply come down to here. I showed you earlier within the, here's our beauty bar set, I showed you that double clicking on these action sets would allow you to load them into Photoshop. This is the other way, simply by selecting that and then clicking on there will cause it to open and come and load into Photoshop. So we've got our icons at the bottom, again with our folder, our new action, trash if we want to get rid of that. We've already got a copy of our beauty bar on here, so I'm just going to trash that. Yes, I want to delete that selection. There's our test where we set up our folder, created a couple of easy actions to work with. Just in terms of testing things, we changed our values. Some of the other things you'll notice are here within the two columns to the left of our action palette. One of the things that happens a lot is somebody accidentally clicks on this one here and you get this message, I'm not really sure, but yeah, okay, just do it. And you'll notice that these all filled in. What that means is that now every action within this set is now going to stop at every stage and every step, because this icon here is our dialog box. We have just toggled it on. If I click on that, it now is gone. So if I wanted to stop at that stage, what we'll notice is that this step now has this toggle beside it, and this action has a heads up to say, hey, something's going to stop and ask for your input during the running of this action, which means that that action will not run in a batch mode. So if I run this image now and I press play, it's going to say, what do you want to do? Yeah, that's fine. Or maybe we want to do it 45 degrees because we're just going to change that partially. So those choices are available, and if you leave that empty, then it'll simply run as we originally intended it to. The other one that you'll notice is this step over here. Now in this case we only have one step within our action, so if we uncheck that, there's really nothing to happen. What this is that you may find that there's some steps within the actions you get from me that have the save step unchecked, so that you can run and do some playing without having saving the action as you go. But if this is unchecked, that step will not run within the action. So again, we have our folder in which the actions are, we have our action, and we have the step that's contained within the action. All of these are contained within the action palette that we can save or load at our convenience. So now that we've done worked with that, let's look at how we can make use of some of these images, image manipulation techniques in an automated capacity. So we've got an action which will work on one image. If we decide that we want to go down to File, Automate, Batch, now we're going to make use of an action onto a folder of images and put it somewhere. So in this case we've got our test action. We're going to skip that for the moment because we want to make use of some of the ones within the beauty bar. So we'll go up to here to our beauty bar. I showed you earlier when we programmed these that our actions had the save to destination files built into the workflows. So we're going to select one of those workflows, and you can see down through here we've got our different workflows, and we're looking for the ones with the savers. So these savers mean that they have the save step programmed into that. So we select that. So we've selected a process. Now what's kind of cool within Photoshop, if you're unsure about all of this programming stuff, we can just come in and work with our open files. And that means that it's going to run on whatever's open. We could have one image, we could have 10 images, we just got them there, boom, it'll go. Then we save and close, and that'll just save it back to their original destination. what we want to do, because these save steps are built in there, it's going to save into those pre-programmed destinations that were part of our, let's just cancel there for a sec, part of our resource actions through here, where these were programmed. Save to print, save to web, save to PSD. That is where we want to make use of our destinations. And because we've already got those set up, running a batch is fairly straightforward. So File, Automate, Batch. The action we're going to be making use of is within the beauty bar. The action we're going to use is, let's use the beauty flow here. And we can, just for simplicity's sake, make use of the open files. When you're running actions or batches or creating droplets, which I'll show you next, it's always good to have a test folder. And if I bring this back to here, you'll see that on my desktop, I've got test images and test images 2. So I just created some folders, not within my client files, because if something goes wrong, I don't want it to mess up any of my original files for my client. I just want to do something very quickly to make sure that the action is going to run. So in this case, let's take our test image 2. We'll choose that, and we're going to ignore some of the settings within here for now because we just want to keep this simple. If I was to do none, then those images would stay open on the desktop. I'm going to do save and close, which is going to close the images afterwards. The save step is already covered within here. So down at the bottom, one of my little tricks that I like to do, log errors to file. It'll do that or it'll stop. So at the end of the batch, sometimes that'll pop up. I log mine to file, and the default setting is on the desktop as an untitled file. So I just leave that. So every time it goes, it'll just rewrite over that same file. Not that you're going to tend to run into this too often, but it just becomes a quick way to deal with your programming. So let's press play. So now it's going to take these 2 images, run through, do our workflow techniques. You're going to see all that it's working on through there within the beauty bar actions. It's going to save our 3 image files, as you can see how it's running through right now. Here's the image that we already had open on our desktop, and in this case we got something that needed to flow through.